Hello and welcome to the Asher Marketing Podcast. This podcast is presented by Asher Agency, your all-in-one marketing partner, serving clients across the nation. For further details, check out asheragency.com.
My guest is Shane Eagan. Shane, thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks, Anthony. Great to be here.
Despite the fact you have young children and you have a big job, you managed to make it here with us, so I really appreciate that.
It's been a journey.
So you are our third Pollywood guest. Pollywood is close to running in the lead for our guests on this podcast.
I've always wanted to say this, but I'm a longtime listener, first-time caller. So.
And you're the first person that said that in 5 years, so good for you. We're off to a great start. Well, I want to hear a little bit about your career path because we talked before we hit record and you shared something interesting, and that is, although not in name, you've been with Pollywood for most of your career.
My entire career, really.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's start a little earlier than that. When you were at Penn High School and you're thinking about, I'm going to have to do something as an adult, did you know what you wanted that to be, or did that come later when you were at Ball State or later on down the line?
Yeah, no, fortunately, I at Penn knew I had a knack for creative.
Okay.
Had an interest in graphic design. And it kind of stems from just like, you know, you're a kid and you're an artist when you're a kid, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people lose that, that confidence. And luckily I had plenty of mentors growing up that just, you know, instilled that, hey, you've got a knack for this. You're good. And anyone from my mom to great grandma was very artistic, and we'd write letters back and forth with pictures. And, and just held on. And then by the time I got to Penn, I had, you know, messed around with different computer programs and photoshopping funny things with my brother. And Penn had a great fine arts program there, and a course that was, I think it was called graphic design, or I'm blanking on the name of the course, but a really great educator, Tom Andrea, Mr. A, and he was he had worked commercially and then had transitioned to teaching, and so brought great insight and perspective to just, you can make a career of this. And you know, he like made you do a Photoshop tutorial as like the first project, and it was computer arts. That's the name. And it was an old school like book tutorial, you know, page by page, and just really built a good foundation. And then fortunately, I knew I was good at that going into Ball State, and knew what I wanted to do, which like I just think is, looking back, I'm so fortunate to know that.
It's super rare, right? And there's a lot of passions that we have as kids that don't really translate well to the working world. And at the same time, there's a lot of jobs that you're not going to be passionate about being an actuary when you're a kid, and all of a sudden you're in actuarial science, right? So the creative arts is one of those. So what'd you study at Ball State?
Visual communication is the fancy way of saying graphic design.
And Ball State's well known for being really good at that.
Yeah, so they have kind of, at least when I was there, they had two tracks. They had visual communication, which was in the fine arts school. Okay. And then they had like a graphic arts management track that was a little bit more in, I forget what school it was in.
Sounds more like a business program.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it was connected somehow like with their trade program a little bit. And so it was a little bit more about like running presses and things like that. But so I went the more fine arts route, and you get a well-rounded fine arts degree there. So doing painting and drawing and printmaking, anything that really sparked your interest, you could take a course on. And so it was great. So
how do you then transition from Ball State into your career? What does that the first opportunities look like? Yeah,
I kind of luck butted into an internship at Biomet in Warsaw. That was before it was Zimmer Biomet. It was just Biomet. And that was between my junior and senior year. Okay. And I worked under a creative director there. Her name was Sharon Doan. Okay. And I think it was like a month into my internship, or even sooner, one day she's not there. And I asked one of my coworkers, hey, where's Sharon? They're like, oh, she didn't tell you. Her 2 weeks were in like a month ago, and she's gone. I was like, oh, okay. So she never told me, and she left. So I thought, I'm never going to hear from Sharon again. And, the following spring, I'm about to graduate, and I got a call out of the blue from Sharon.
Oh, wow.
And she said, "Hey, I'm at this new company that's up in Syracuse, Indiana, not far from Warsaw, and it's called Image Group, and we're looking for a junior designer. I thought of you. Love for you to come and interview." And so I had my eyes set on like Chicago or Indy, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, coming out of college, want to work for a cool agency. And I drove up to Syracuse, Indiana, which, if the listeners aren't familiar, is a pretty small town. Especially early spring on a like really crappy
maybe
gray,
not 4th of July weekend, but
you drive into town and then like the industrial park of the town, and you're just like, where am I? What am I doing here? And but I interviewed, and they seemed like great people, and it was an hour and change from my parents' basement, so I could live out of there, have a job while I continued looking. And and so Image Group, right before all of this, had been bought out by Pollywood, and Pollywood bought them basically for the building. It was a pole barn. They had presses in the back, and then a marketing agency up front. Pollywood shut down the presses, used the back of house for their production needs, but saw value in maintaining the marketing firm. It could take on the Pollywood account. We were fortunate that they allowed us to continue operating the agency and going and getting new accounts. So it was a cool sell during the interview. They were like, "Hey, we're a small firm, but we have the backing of this larger company.
You've got this guaranteed client that is going to keep you busy, and you get to work on other stuff."
And like great benefits, and of like manufacturing benefits are good, and so it was like, okay, this is cool, and and thought, I'll be here for a few years, or maybe
you were still thinking Chicago or Indy.
I was still looking, actively interviewing, and now fast forward 13 years, and the Image Group, we finally shuttered the doors after a couple of years. Just Pollywood kept growing and growing and growing, and we couldn't keep up with our other accounts. So we said, all right. There was one day we were like, Image Group's closed. We're Pollywood marketing now. So,
Wow. Yeah. So good for you in making a good impression at Biomet. You must have done some right.
In just a couple of weeks, really.
Well, sometimes that's all it takes. So for those who may not be familiar, anyone who's listened to this podcast over the years may have heard some of our other guests from Pollywood. But for those who haven't, and for those who may not be familiar with the name, it's a pretty well-known name. But what does Pollywood do, and what's your role in that? So
Pollywood's an outdoor furniture manufacturer. We create our own lumber, is what we call it. It's a recycled plastic lumber. So not the flimsy Adirondack chairs you see outside of your local hardware store that break after a year. We're talking heavy duty. It's a heavier than wood type material, so it doesn't blow away, and it's basically indestructible. It's kind of buy it for life type of product. It's got a great 20-year warranty.
And was this, the company, it's a globally recognized company, but has always been based in Syracuse, correct?
It started in 1990. It started in a barn, is the story.
And I'm assuming that the original customer base was people with lake homes in north central Indiana, where you have this ready market. Now, obviously, it's much more expansive than that.
Our founder, Doug Rassi, was in vinyl fencing pretty early on, and he was at a trade show, and the 80s recycling movement of, keep America beautiful, and the crying Native American, and that was creating all of this product and different materials, and Pollywood, this lumber, HDP lumber, was one of those things, and Doug was aware of it, just being in the fencing industry, but didn't have a use for it in fencing. It's not good structurally. And he was at a trade show, and across from him at the trade show was a outdoor furniture Adirondack guy making it out of wood, like you would, and it just clicked. And he was like, "That's it. That's what I do."
Well, and I'm old enough to remember, there was and the debate sometimes still goes on, where it's like you can be environmentally conscious or you can make money. And I think Pollywood's a great example of you really can have it both ways. You can do something that's good for the planet. Create a quality product that has value that's different than the alternative, many would say better than the alternative because it's not going to rot. You're not going to have to replace it every 5 years and still, be responsible, but still, have a successful business.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you've seen a lot of growth at Bollywood.
Yeah.
What does that look like on the marketing team? How have you evolved from image group folks to the team you have now?
Oh, man. It's for coming up on 13 years now, and I've just seen different iterations of the company over and over again, and just looking back of, anywhere from employees to office space, it's just blown up, and I think the same's true just on the content we're putting out, my team's putting out, and we've gone from being like a hybrid marketing / creative / do it all to now we've got a established marketing team that my team, creative team, supports, which has been awesome. It's been great to have the why given to us rather than us have to figure out what's our why, and we can.
And now we actually have to execute that.
We can focus on the creative work and make beautiful visuals. And,
So talk about the team a little bit, the folks you work with most closely. What does that look like, and how do you try to play your role within that?
Bollywood uses the term team of teams a lot, and that's been true since day one of, you might be on the HR team, but you're going to be working with sales on certain projects or production, and that's what's unique about creative department is we are truly one of the few teams that work with every single department at Bollywood. It's a little bit of everything and anything every day. And
well, you mentioned HR. Is there a employee recruitment angle to some of the work you do, where you're talking to prospective employees?
We support that. And that's been I think that's going to be an upcoming project that we're going to be focusing on is getting them some more on brand visuals and working them into kind of the content schedule and things like that.
So. Well, I mentioned that because a lot of the clients we work with, they have this constant tension between we need to tell the story to sell more product, and we've done such a good job of that now we need more people to actually build the product and bring the product to life. So it's not rare that teams have to pivot. You're kind of always working on both, but there's times when there's more of an emphasis on one over the other.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you've, if I understand things correctly from our mutual friend Jim, you've got to work with Martha Stewart and some other, big collaborators. What's that been like? What's meaningful about that to you?
Just really cool opportunities. It's awesome to.
Probably opportunities you didn't imagine when you pulled into the industrial park.
No way.
Like
prior to the big names of Martha Stewart, we were working with, really, really cool influencers and content creators and designers in the industry of interior design, exterior design, things like that. And a few like HGTV personalities, and the Martha Stewart was pretty cool. It was I got to have lunch with her, which was fun, and she was great. Very professional, very just such a pro.
Kind of what you'd expect, right?
Absolutely what you'd expect. Just amazing how she can flip the switch and just one take, and just. All right, that was good. All right, on to the next one.
Don't have much to add.
So no notes.
Well, that's great. What ultimately are some of the biggest challenges you face in this work? What are some of the things that, they may be good stress, but they're things that, maybe the rest of us wouldn't immediately understand as challenges in your world?
We're taking a quick break to talk about something that can truly impact your business, the power of public relations with Asher Agency. Imagine having a team of skilled communicators working tirelessly to shape your public image, build relationships with key stakeholders, and position your brand as a leader in your industry. That's exactly what Asher offers. Asher knows how to get your message heard by the right people at the right time. Visit AsherAgency.com for more info.
I think just keeping up with the demand. Our team's it's bigger than it was. We're at 13, 14 now, I think. Check. We've always been it feels like sometimes you're struggling to keep your head above water and just juggling spinning plates and then just with where the brand's headed and just the explosive growth we had, it's tidal wave and it's managing priorities. I'd say it's probably my number one struggle.
Well, and in your role, I would imagine you've got the actual hands-on work, getting stuff done. You've got the planning for here's what's coming up next. We need to be ready for that. And while you have some help with this now, the strategy piece, what should we be doing 3 months, 6 months from now? There's educating yourself as much as is changing in our world. What's coming up? What do I need to be aware of to stay relevant? There's educating other people about that. I don't mean to scare you away from your own job, but there's a lot going on. So how do you manage all that and young kids and everything else?
Oh, yeah. No, I think on the young kids topic, I think like you can be really, really good at one thing in your life, and then, other things you might be really good at. I think you only get 2 really, reallys on one area of your life. So I've had to move one of my really, really goods from Hollywood to being a really good dad. So I'm a really good dad, and I'm a really good creative director.
Well, and it sounds like your priorities are in the right place. Well, I was talking with another one of our guests recently, and we said, there's this misunderstanding, and I've only figured this out in my mid-50s, so hopefully everybody else gets there sooner. But everybody talks about work-life balance, and it's not something you achieve daily. You don't even achieve it weekly. It's kind of like over the course of decades. Did I give the right attention collectively to the right stuff? Because if you try to hit all your marks as a parent, as a manager of people, as an employee, as a child of parents, as a sibling, as a friend, all these other things, you'll just go insane. So it's kind of like, I'm not going to be great at that for the next 3 months, and then I'll reinvest in it down the line.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't know, it can be kind of a challenge too, like, oh, I used to be really, really good at this at work, but it feels like it's slacking, but you just have to keep a 10,000-foot view of, no, we're doing fine. It's just not up to the former gold standard.
For sure. And some of it is delegation, right? When you have a team of 13 or 14, there's things that you have to and should give to other people. And one of the hardest parts of that is walking away.
Oh, absolutely.
And saying, they might do it differently. They might do it better. And that's okay. I need to stay in my lane, but it can be really tempting to do the thing you've always done and just be comfortable. But I think where the real magic is when you kind of level up because you get great people you can delegate to. So.
Absolutely. And once again, my team's just amazing, and I'm so proud of the work we do. And they're just all true creative professionals, and it's great to have a team that you can trust, to hand off that work. And whenever I feel that of like, oh, I could just do it, and then I ultimately hand it off, and I'm always pleasantly surprised when I'm like, wow, they did that so much better than I would have ever done.
And part of the art of delegation is saying really nice things about your team so they know they're appreciated. And when you give them work, they're like, okay, this is all right. So what are some of the things that are on the horizon, some of the projects, things on the to-do list that as you look ahead are your priorities?
Really top of mind. We just today launched our commercial website. So a whole new leg, tentpole of sales, really. It's always been reactive in the past of the commercial side of things. If a hotel property or restaurant reached out, we'd of course work with them, but
which really just at that point, it's repackaging the products that are more B2C at that point.
And it's sales too, of just working with them on pricing and, large projects and all that. So we've, Pollywood's built out the team. We have an awesome commercial team now, dedicated sales staff. And, they've been working with us pretty heavily over the last year or so, I guess, of, designing all the content to support that team. And we've been working on trade shows and physical spaces. And, I mentioned the website and commercial mailer catalogs, and it's a whole different, voice for the brand. And, it's been fun to, flip the switch and dip our toe into commercial, and a lot of cool opportunities coming through, and getting the photo shoots to support that, and working with hotels and restaurants. And
and it might sound simple, but it's creating messaging and images that look like their world, right? That they can say, they must be good at this because they understand us.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And not saying, well, I know this isn't you, but imagine if it were different.
Yeah.
Now you don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's definitely a big one. We've been working a lot in direct mail for the direct-to-consumer brand, and that's been going on for a few years now, but it's been working great for us, and it was very exciting for the creatives. You know, we love print, and it's fun to design for print. And
well, if nothing else, you get a little bit more real estate to work with than you do with some of the digital components.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, and I want to talk a little bit about that because we recently had a conversation with one of our clients, and I won't disclose who it was, but they came to us and they basically said, we're feeling pressure internally to get away from print and do more digital. And while we know that digital is often first impression and it's the impressions people are going to see most, we believe as a marketing team, print still has a role. Sounds like that's your experience too. And I have no particular allegiance to any specific tactic or format, but what's your experience been in an increasingly digital world saying now there's still a place for print?
Yeah, I think it's full funnel, right? Like, and brand validation's big for us too. We want to be the name when you think of outdoor furniture. And I always boil it down to, like, you know, a lot of people go to Lowe's or Home Depot or the big box store and buy whatever furniture looks good, but they probably can't tell you what the brand is, you know, on that box, or if there even is a brand, if you're buying off of Amazon. Or, so we want to be, you know, the brand for outdoor living. And to make that happen, we want that name recognition. And I think a brand validator is, if it's coming in my mailbox addressed to me, that's a pretty significant kind of thing in your mind of, oh, I'm getting mail addressed to me from this brand. And then we can back that up with the full funnel of, oh, then they're on Instagram and we're targeting ads at them, and that line up with that creative, and it just helps establish you as that household name.
Yeah, well, and it's definitely not a discount product, right? It's something that people have to see as an investment. I'm going to spend a little bit more money, but this is going to last and it's going to look good for a long time. Hard to make that case without some visual assets that support it, whether it's photo or video. So print's going to carry that better than, you know, most other things.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's pivot to some more quick hit questions. And the good news is your answers can be long. They don't have to be quick hit. So the first one is about career success. You know, you've had some pivot points of your own along the way where you thought you were going to be doing one thing. I'm going to go to Chicago. I'm going to go to Indy. Maybe being closer to home isn't all that bad. You've become a parent during all that. You've been entry level, you've had a role in leading a team. What have you learned in all that about career success and fulfillment? If you're giving someone advice about what they should strive for to have a great career, what would you say is the key?
Yeah, I think keeping yourself open to opportunities as they arise. There was opportunity to, at one point between now and 13 years ago, there's kind of an imagery photography role that, I don't know, it didn't necessarily open up, but it was something we had a photographer. I worked on shoots with them. I would take some pictures and stuff, and I was like, oh, this is fun. I have a knack for it. And then, that role kind of opened up, and I was like, okay, I can step into that. And I think I added photographer to my job description. But like, just, being open to those opportunities as they arise, I think is huge. And, showing that can-do attitude and the willingness to, I'll step into that and try it out. And
Well, and it's one of those things where, the more it's hard because you don't want to pile on too much, but the more you say yes to, the more other opportunities are going to come your way.
Exactly.
Right? It's the reality of it. All right. Second question for you. What is a myth or misconception about the work that you do? And this could be creative work in general. It could be something about Pollywood. It could be something about working in Syracuse, Indiana. What's something that people misunderstand about your working world? A myth that you want to debunk, or something that's maybe not well enough understood that you want to amplify?
Yeah. When I thought back to like when I first started and was looking at the people above me, it always felt like they had sold their soul, you know, like they weren't doing the creative work anymore. And like, if I wanted to achieve that level of success and climb up the like corporate ladder or the creative professional ladder, like I'm going to have to sell my soul and not be an artist anymore, and not create. And, I think that's a total myth, and you know, you do less of it, but I think it's important to maintain that creativity, whether that's taking on projects that you want to work on, or I've found that I can find creativity in those kind of corporate, khaki, mundane tasks that I was seeing as a creative. I'm like, oh, I never want to be working in spreadsheets or things like that. But or project management was like, oh gosh, but I like love project management and the softwares that support it, and you know, building out designing the systems that help my team run.
Well, and another aspect of that, I mean, this is something I've found later on in my career, is I honestly get more satisfaction about watching other people I work with take a step up versus myself taking a step up. It's kind of like, I'm good. And in more of that supervisory management role, you can impact more people, and kind of like the creativity that you used to use hands-on, you can still do that, but can you inspire other people that makes, this is a little high-minded, but it makes the world a little more creative because you're taking what you've learned and disseminating that.
Yeah, totally.
So if you need a justification for selling out to the man, there it is. It's helped me over the years. All right, one last quick hit question. What's something that you use that helps you do more, be more effective, be more efficient? And this could be a digital tool. It could be project management like you talked about, or it could be something completely analog, but something that helps you be more efficient and more effective that you think deserves a shout out.
I think it's like, I don't know. I keep coming back to having kids, and I probably should shout out my wife too. I have a beautiful, amazing wife. But,
so your hack is have a great wife.
No. But she totally helps with the kids.
Oh,
and,
sure.
Absolutely runs the house.
It's absolutely a partnership.
No, I think, you know, as I've had kids and even before then, just the more and more work we're doing and the more and more things that are coming in my head, it's just like, my head feels full. And something I've found that's been very helpful for me is I call it a second brain. I think there's a book out there where a guy writes about a system. I've not read that book. But the idea of a second brain just being like a dumping spot digitally and a system of when something comes in, important information, you have a filing system.
You know where it goes.
You know where it goes. And I use Lucidchart is the app. But it's essentially, I know Danielle brought up Milanote. That's something we use on the team.
Yeah.
I had started with Lucidchart, so I was kind of aligned to that. But it's just a empty board that you can throw stuff on and organize it however you want. And it's how I run my my professional life, and as well as my personal life too, of just it's a whole system of, you know, calendars and tasks, and that's kind of the central hub collection point for it all. So
well, and I think, you know, the challenge that we all run into is as our lives get more complex, either with more responsibilities at work or, you know, family responsibilities, whatever it is, you can't rely on memory anymore.
No.
We were never good at it. We just had more, you know, more margin. The stuff you're talking about is makes my inner nerd feel very warm and fuzzy. There's a great quote by a guy named David Allen who says, "Your mind is for having ideas, not holding them." And, you know, that's become probably the biggest professional aha moment I had 5 years ago. Was when I said, don't try to remember anything.
Yeah.
You know, if you need to remember to bring your lunch in, put the keys in the fridge. Yep. Because you're going to need the keys to get in the car. And so it's little things like that, but technology can enable that. I mean, I'm a big user of Google Keep because I can hit, I'm an Android guy, sorry. I can hit a button in my car and say, note to self, whatever it is. And I know I'm going to catch that later. Instead of the mental bandwidth of try to remember this, try to remember this, try to remember this, and I forget it anyway, right? Yep. So I think hearing that someone who's in the role you're in has become more dependent on that sort of thing is good to know. That people, it's actually, there's a lot of freedom in having those systems that set you up for success.
Yeah, for sure. And like as AI comes in and you can start asking AI, you can train an AI on the second brain you're building. Like that's what I've been looking into now is we're a Google shop at Polywood, and Gemini's being more and more integrated into like Gmail and things like that. So it's nice to be like, rather than I'm going to spend 10 minutes searching for this random email, I can say, hey, when's the launch of this product supposed to happen?
Yeah. And it's about understanding, where do I add value, right? Is this task something that needs, a human side and my unique creativity, or is it just busy work that I can sort of outsource? I mean, one of my favorite things to do is to dump a task on AI that is, I'm not going to add any value to it. And then go away and then come back, and 20 minutes later, it's like, oh, that problem is solved. I can move on. Are you guys, as a Google house, are you using Notebook LM at all?
My team is not. I can't speak for all departments, but
yeah, that's been a recent aha moment because, as you probably well know, you're working from a finite set of sources. It's not the entire internet. It's, I'm going to drop in these 20 documents, and then I can query the notebook to say, find where I talk about this, or give me a couple examples from these documents of this, or, it's great when you have a lot of information you're trying to make sense of. And as a Google shop, it's really integrated with everything else you're doing.
Check that out.
Which is another way of saying, that Google is probably going to run the world again very soon. And that might be great, and it might be scary, and I guess stay tuned and we'll all find out. Yeah.
We're all in this together.
Well, that's a great note to end on, Shane. And thank you very much for doing this. This has been a pleasure getting to know you and hearing more about your work.
Yeah, absolutely. Really appreciated the time, and it's been fun.
Well, thanks to you, and thanks to everyone who took the opportunity to listen to this episode of the Asher Marketing Podcast. We'll be back next time with another great guest, and we hope you'll join us then.
And now, we'd love to hear from you. Is there a question you wish we had covered? Please let us know. You can reach out to us at hello@asheragency.com. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to our show wherever you get your podcasts. It really helps others discover us as well. For more resources and updates, visit our website at asheragency.com. Thanks for listening.